Hey everyone, I'm Blue Sirens, and this is where I talk about anything music related, my music. I make lo-fi music, or anything in music that I find interesting. And today I want to talk to you about a movie called Beats. It came out on Netflix in 2019 and is about a reclusive teenager and a struggling hip-hop producer and how they form a bond together over their love for hip-hop. There's a lot more to it than that, but if I had to sum it up, and that's kind of how Netflix sums it up, that's kind of what it would be. But really, it's about a teenager who his little sister died due to gang violence and doesn't leave his house. And the struggling hip-hop producer is working as a school security guard and is trying to get the kids to come back to school. And he discovers this young hip-hop producer, August, and says, hey, let's work together, but he's really shy. He hasn't really gone outside since his little sister was killed, and is like, no, like really scared, kind of like has a panic attack when he first meets him. It's more of like, how are we helping this young kid kind of come out of his shell? But then this hip-hop producer that's played by Anthony Anderson, he uses this as an opportunity to get a ton of money and get back on top and kind of screw over August. Now, eventually in this process, in this movie, he realizes, hey, I can't do this to this kid. It's a bad thing to do, and he burns up the contract. But there's some level of betrayal, and they come together, and then they decide to move forward and make music together still. And August returns to school and is in a much better place mentally and health-wise overall too. So that's a pretty good summary. Is it a good movie? I think it's a pretty decent movie. I'd probably give it like 4 out of 5 stars. And I would recommend this movie because there's a really good life lessons in this movie, especially if you're a starting producer. Because not only do we see how August, the young hip-hop prodigy, how he kind of falls into some of these traps, but kind of also the importance of knowing who is in your circle as well. Because the school security guard, the struggling hip-hop producer, very much like uses the trust of like, I'm your only connection in this world. I got you someone to sing over your beats. I got someone to play this beat live. I did all this stuff for you. He uses this as a way to get him to not really read a contract. He says, I read the contract. You can trust me. It's all good. And as soon as he signs it, it's like, bro, like, I'm actually going to tear it up because I feel too guilty, because I was willing to sell you out to get like an extra 50 G's to go straight to me. Yeah, it's a tough lesson to learn. And it's like a kind of terrible part of the film, like from a viewer, because you're like, you guys, they've definitely grown together and have a friendship, and like the mom trusts this guy with her son. Dad isn't around, so he gives him some dating advice, and you know, he really helps him through some like formative experiences in a young man's life, but then kind of like screws him over in the end. So it's got its pitfalls. But I do think one of the bigger lessons to learn from this movie is that, you know, whenever you're giving a contract or someone's talking about having you sign to them or some sort of agreement, you know, make sure it's in writing. But 2, also read it, and don't have other people read it for you unless they're your paid lawyer, because anyone can read it for you and say, oh no, it's good. And unless you're paying them for it, or, you know, even if you're not paying for them, it's just someone you trust, it's tough to say that maybe they didn't read all of it. Maybe they didn't understand everything in it. Or in this case, maybe there's something in it for them that they're going to try to say it's all good for you, when really it's all good for them. I've been approached by different distribution companies, different labels, different types of contracts have been given to me, and the majority of the time, none of them are really good. And yeah, is it kind of tedious to sit down and read everything that's in them? Yeah, it is. And if you don't know someone that's a lawyer that can kind of help you out with it, it can take a lot of your time. And if you don't have a lot of time, it can very easily feel like you're pressured to just sign your name and call it good and kind of go, whatever they say word of mouth is what's actually in the contract. But it's important. Take your time, read the contract, understand what's in it, ask questions, and don't be afraid to say what you want in the contract. If they can't give it to you, the contract will remain the same. And if they can, then they'll make revisions. And if they ultimately want to work with you, they will make these changes for you. Now, if you're like, hey, I want $100,000 and the contract's only for like $10,000, probably not gonna make those changes. So don't make like too many crazy changes. Just make them reasonable, and make sure while you're doing it that you retain the rights to all of your music during this process. If someone wants to use your music for a period of time, make sure that period of time is clearly defined, when it's going to start, when it's going to end, and how things are handled in the process throughout, from the beginning to the end. So that's the biggest takeaway I got from this movie. It's a great movie overall though, because you see August, the character in the movie, like making beats. He uses Ableton, but he does use a drum machine that's really cool, and he does have some talent that they show. It's not like he just stayed in his room forever after this, after his sister was killed, but they show his talent very early on, and how his sister's death continues to kind of inspire him, and he uses some things that he recorded of her talking in making beats. And so that alone, like if you're just looking for inspiration, that is a good aspect of this movie. It's only about like an hour and a half long, and I honestly thought when I was first watching it that this was a biopic. I thought the person in this movie was a legitimate person until I got to the very end, and then I was like, wait, shouldn't there be something that comes on the screen that says where this person is today, or what they continue to do after this last scene in the movie? And then there wasn't. So but it just felt so real, and I just connected to it in such a unique way that I can't do anything but recommend it. If you want a movie that you can just sit down, enjoy, and it's about making music and that process and seeing the rise of someone come up as a young hip-hop producer, I would definitely recommend watching this movie. It's called Beats. It's on Netflix. It's only about an hour and a half or so, and it's a good watch. But let me know what you guys think. Did you like the movie? Do you think it's valuable to have someone read the contract, especially someone that you're paying, so you know exactly what's in it and that they have an unbiased opinion? Let me know in the comments below, and with that, I'll see you next time.